What is up, everybody? This is Joe Adams, and welcome to the Relentless Pursuit Podcast. What we do on this podcast is bring in guests from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, to share their story and take us along the journey that led them to where they're at today. We cover every different kind of topic, and we find connection between individuals that you can relate to no matter what they've been through. Check it out. If that is for you, like, subscribe, all the wonderful things. If that is not for you, I don't know what your problem is, but you need to jump on board and show us some love. So thank you and enjoy.
Life has its ups and downs. And I know that, and I always tell people, when we were first married, the ups were real high and the downs were very low also. The older we have gotten, we still have nice ups and the downs don't go down as far. Mm-hmm. And I think because we recognize things in each other that we're able to pick ourselves up and move forward again. And I know that just before we lost Mike, I think that was probably the happiest time of my life. I've never felt such exhilaration.
Yeah, I want to hear about that because, coming after you had gotten like the work on your relationship, you had Victoria, because y'all were victorious, right? Yes. And so coming from that, there was a lot of changes. Your marriage was thriving, mm-hmm. and you're in a totally different place. Yeah. So I want to hear your experience there. Like you're on this high, right? You're feeling good in your marriage. Things are good in life. You got this beautiful baby girl. Share this, bridge into that part of the journey and, you being in the best place you were and so on.
Yeah, we worked into that and we had a good time and we were traveling and, raising our kids. It wasn't until I started having, and I honestly, I feel like I had such a deep spiritual connection with God that I was communicating on a different level. Mm-hmm. And I knew he was talking to me and I was talking to him. And it wasn't necessarily a prayer, it was an actual conversation. And I know that before he had passed, I know that he had told me that we were going to lose Mike. So, and he was, I think about 18. And all three of our kids are very strong-willed. They're a lot like their dad, which is a good thing. Yeah. I don't look at strong-willed kids as a bad thing. No, they're not awesome. Conformists, which I think is what we need more of.
My daughter's strong-willed. I love it. I'm like, I want to emphasize that. Yeah, she needs to be.
It's a very good thing. They're very good critical thinkers, which I enjoy, because I was never brought up that way.
Okay.
So having a house full of them has always been a challenge for me.
Yeah, for sure.
They challenged me in many ways. But, I knew that I was going to lose Mike.
Yeah.
And I think at the time we were having problems with our other son, and Rick was, he was threatening to kick out Mike because he was already 18. And he said, please don't. I said, we need to keep him home. And I was just in tears and explained, why. God had a conversation with me, and he said, we're going to lose Mike at some point. And I think Rick was shocked because he had already journaled on his own, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
That we were going to lose one of our kids.
Yeah.
So it was during that time that we were able to, change how we approached Mike and treat him more as an adult, having more conversations with him and things like that. And at the time, in California, cannabis was not legal. I voted for it to be legal. Mike was young. I think before it was passed, it was like in 2020, something like that. I can't remember. It was 2010. I can't remember. But so I voted for it to be passed because I believe in those kinds of medicines. Salicylic cannabis is medicine for the mind. But it was still a long road before it was going to be accepted. Yeah. And then lo and behold, years later, my son ended up going into that industry. And of course, as a mom, you know, I always worried about it just because I knew, you know, I know the medical side of it.
Yeah.
And I know what it can do, but I also know the bad side of it, you know, the people that are involved in it.
The criminal side.
The criminal side of it. And not that the medicine's bad, but the element of the people that are in it.
Yeah.
So I know that I had conversations with him, and this was in August 2013. I had a talk with him about going into this industry, and I shared my concerns with him. And I said, you know, I know you have the heart for it. I understand why you're doing this. I said, but the people that are out there don't have that same heart for it. I said, there's a money element to it. You know, there's a dark side to that.
Yeah.
And he says, Mom, don't worry about me. I'm going to be fine. I said, well, unfortunately, I do worry about you. You know, I do not want anything to happen to you. And he had told me, if I die, I go to heaven. And I looked at him, I shook my finger, and I started crying. And I said, you are not supposed to leave before me. I said, that's not. And he says, but you and Dad have taught me all my life that if we die, we go to heaven. He said, you know, wouldn't you want that for me? I said, well, of course, but after I go, not before. And he said, Mom, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. So after that had happened, the following month, I rode the backside of our house to go to work at the hospital. And every time I pass the cemetery, God was warning me. You know, this is coming up, and I just want to talk to you about it. And I was like, nope, I'm not there to even hear this information. And conversation kept going every time I went by there. And he said, I wanted to let you know, the time is coming. And I remember telling him, I really don't want to talk about this right now. And he said, I'll be back. And sure enough, wasn't long later, he came back and he says, Mike will be buried here. And I just said, please, not my kids. I said, you can do anything to me. Yeah. Just not my kids. And he said, I'll come back, talk some more with you. And conversation kept getting more intense. And came, I think, about October. Michael had just moved out. And, had that presence again. At this time, I said, okay. I said, if you're going to take my son, I said, you are going to have to walk me through it. I said, because I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. And he said, I'll be with you. And it was a couple months later, we lost Mike. I have never in my life, there is nothing I will ever go through that will hurt me like that, losing my son. I literally could have died. I made a DNR after I lost Mike. And I told my family, I don't care what. I don't care if they tell you, oh, yeah, she'll live if, I have a car accident. Nope. I had no desire whatsoever to live. And, people always, they would say, I can't even imagine, or, I've thought about, things like that, about losing my child. And it is worse than anything that your mind can take you. When you lose a child, there is nothing worse than that. in your life. If it wasn't for Rick and my children, I honestly don't think I would be here, because they walked me through it. And I believe, that was God's way of helping me. And if it wasn't for the work that Rick and I had done in our relationship, I don't think he would have been able to carry me the way he did.
Yeah.
And when you talk about the murder of a loved one, especially a child, and you think about what you could have done to that person, believe me, the thoughts cross your mind. When somebody hurts your baby, that's my baby. I wanted to kill him, and I wanted to hurt his wife too.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I just there is no amount of rage, but you also want justice for him, and going through the court system. We don't live in the Wild West, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, this is like you want to set a village ablaze.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I can only envision how I'd feel. Like you said, like I will never know. God forbid I do. But just even your mind goes places. I mean, I've thought about that loss. It's those intrusive thoughts come, and it's just like it's unbearable to even imagine. So I can just
even your thoughts are not even as worse as going through it. It's not even as bad.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, right now I can talk about it. I'm not overly emotional, but I can get there. Thankfully, I've worked my grief to a point where I am able to speak on it. I feel like I want to be able to help people, especially if they've lost their child, that they can live, and they can live happily after. It's not the end.
I think it's I think we were talking about, right? Like y'all having to experience these things that y'all been through to impact others. And, like I said earlier, like most people will not have to face these things, but y'all did. But there's a purpose in it. That's the whole thing, is finding the purpose in it. And as hard as that is, that's the only way to move forward and have a good life, is finding purpose and using it for good. Otherwise, there's, you're going to be hateful and resentful for the rest of your life, and that's no way to live.
No, it's not the way our son lived. It's not any way that he would want us to live. And from his death, he set me free in whatever I may have thought was right or wrong, whatever misconception I might have had of people and where they are, judgments. He just set me free to be able to love. And again, you learn more about compassion. You learn more about forgiveness. You learn how to live life.
Yeah.
And I know my son is here. He is, without a shadow of a doubt. The scripture talks about the veil being so thin from where we are and where they are. And there's no way I know that he's here.
Yeah.
And so I take comfort in that. And I have no fear in death, which I used to when I was younger.
Yeah.
I was always afraid of dying. Not anymore.
Yeah.
If I go, and I'm good with it.
Yeah.
And that only happened because I lost my son. Yeah. Because I know that I've experienced the worst in life.
I mean, I'd say that's probably I mean, like I said, God forbid I was to find out, but I feel like losing a child could be the worst thing that can happen to you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely been a journey. And I said that only because no matter where you are in life, wherever the things that you overcome, you never stop learning. You never stop growing. You never stop going through conflict.
Yeah.
It's just how you handle it. Yeah. So I know, and when Rick broke his neck, that was a new thing to overcome. And it was hard.
It's like you throw your hands up. You're like, what?
I know.
God, can't we get a break? Yeah, I mean,
it's exactly the way we felt.
I was thinking it too when he was telling me the story initially. Like he got to that, and I'm just like, geez, guys, like take it easy on these guys, God. No, but today it's just another hurdle. It's another lesson for y'all to share with the world.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it was, and it wasn't easy. When you deal with someone who's a manly man. I mean, when you think of manly man, that's my husband. He did everything for us. He could fix everything. He was our problem solver.
Yeah.
And like my daughter, she said, if anything was wrong with the car, if anything she, had construction-wise, Dad fixed it.
Yeah.
Dad did it. And so when that happened and he was not able to do that anymore, I mean, literally had to be fed and cleaned and everything. That was difficult. I mean, even for him mentally. And I could just see him drowning.
Yeah.
I could see him mentally leaving me, that just giving up.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no, you are not.
Not after all we've been through.
You get your butt up.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was a part of his ego, that's in a way, right? And you realized, you had that moment. It came to like, it's all here when you were at, talk to Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just that shift. And, but I mean, I get it too. I mean, and I can relate in a way when I had my accident, I was like, my family was wiping my ass there for me for a little bit and I couldn't move and I couldn't walk for a few months. And I was just like, I put so much into my physical strength and like, building that. And that's a huge piece of me. Like now I got to have other people wipe me. Like that's just, it's tough to go through. I mean, and I remember just being in tears. My dad's holding me on the side. My mom's wiping me like, oh, I'm a grown man, it's a tough place to be in. Yeah. Those moments will get you.
Yeah.
So, and it, I don't know, it's hearing you reflect on the loss of your son. I've had my mom express her feelings about my wreck, right? I mean, she got a call while I was on a life flight. That's all she knew. And most of the time, like that results in, the opposite of like me being here today. And, it haunts her, she almost lost me. And, as a parent, that's the last thing you want your kid to go before you, it's not how it's supposed to be. And so, yeah, and it still takes a toll on her. She gets emotional talking about it. But I mean, she connects with you in that way. Unfortunately, I'm here, but, I can imagine that fear just going to the hospital without any answers, like, holy shit.
Yeah, the devastation. I know when they came to the door, I thought he had an accident. Never even entered my mind that they were coming to tell us, what had happened.
Yeah.
And I just remember when they told us, everything went in slow motion. Everything went in slow motion. I saw my son cup his hands in his face in his hands and just turning around and just, screaming, no, no, no. And I remember just in slow motion, him walking over to the hallway because my daughter heard the commotion and she got up and I heard my son tell my daughter what had happened and her screams, and these are my children. This was my family. And just the devastation of and the harm that this man did. I
mean, yeah, you telling that, it's like she's like a scene in a movie, because it almost seems like something that's unreal, I mean, it's just insane. I mean, y'all explaining this whole story to me, like both point of views, it's just like, God.
Learning the forgiveness process, and
that's the powerful part. I mean, how was that for you,
I had a very tough time with it. Very tough time, especially, I was going to school to get my bachelor's degree. I chose to continue on with the course just because it did help me when I couldn't sleep. I would do schoolwork in the middle of the night. And then dealing with his family during the court was difficult. We had to have a police escort at one point because the wife had threatened me. It just, there was a lot that went on, and just his.
Why would she threaten you? I mean,
right.
That's insane.
Right. So it was just, his incapacity to understand what he did. He felt justified. And I think that's just here, my son had a good heart. He had such a good heart. He had a heart for people, and this man destroyed it. And it took me a bit. And I felt like there was so much pressure on me to forgive from the Christian aspect. You got to forgive. I'm like, I don't want to. Yeah. Don't tell me that I have to forgive this. Don't tell me that I have to forgive somebody who took my child.
And it's like, how are other people going to tell you to do something that they have not had to experience?
Right. And it's so strange to me.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty wild.
You have not lived my life to know.
It's easier for you to say from the outside.
Yeah.
But really put yourself in my shoes, and they can't.
Yeah.
So just be there for somebody.
And I actually, when he was at the funeral home, went to see him. Rick couldn't do it. He said, "There's just no way." He said, "I can't go in there." But being a nurse, I had explained to the funeral director. I said, "I want to be able to bathe him one last time," and she looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, "Well, let me explain why." I said, "When my patients died, I took care of their bodies afterwards. I bathed them, and I made sure that they went to the morgue presentable."
Yeah.
I said, "I want to make sure that I do the same for my son.
Yeah.
Please let me do that." And so she said, "Okay, I understand."
That's good.
So I was able to go behind, where they had him on the table. And she told me that I wouldn't be able to bathe him because of the way they did the autopsy. He was in a bag from the neck, his wrists, because he was leaking. So that was difficult. But I was able to be back there. My other son, Kyle, came with me because he didn't want me to do it by myself, which I felt like I could have. And looking back, I probably shouldn't have had him come with me. I think that was really hard on him to see his brother like that.
Oh, yeah.
And but I was able to dress him, do all the things that the mortician would have done and take care of him that way. And I felt good about it. I didn't cry. I took care of my family member.
Yeah.
The way that I've taken care of other family members.
Of course.
Respectfully. And so I felt like I, was honoring him and doing that.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, and you were able to be granted that wish to do so.
I am very thankful.
Which you should
did that.
You should be able to have control over that. Of course, it's your child.
Yeah.
So
that was a good thing for me. And then, of course, the forgiveness part, I'm thankful the therapist that I was seeing at the time, I told him I was just having a really tough time with this forgiveness stuff. And he said, "God knows where you are." He said he lost a son. And he said, and he knows exactly where you are, and he will take you exactly where you are, and he'll move you forward in his time. He said, you don't have to forgive him right now. That's up to you and God.
Yeah.
So I was it really took a load off my shoulders only because of everything I kept hearing from the outskirts, forgive. And I was like, no, I'm not there. And so I'm thankful to him in his wisdom in allowing me to have that grief and allowing God to walk me through it to the point where I could.
Yeah.
So by the time the trial had ended, I had forgiven him. I literally cried every day that my son was gone. That first year was tough. It was tough. And it just, I have empathy for people who lose their children.
Yeah. But
I'm thankful that my family allowed me to grieve that way.
Of course.
And that I'm on the other side of this, and I'm happy. I'm happy.
I think trying to force the forgiveness and the process only prolongs it.
Yes.
And I think people just need to hey, shut up and just be present.
Right.
You know, we talked about
That's a good word.
Yeah. But my last episode, he was talking about his wife's loss of her brother, and it was really a dark time, you know. And he said, but we talked about being the strength and being just present.
Being present.
Now, a lot of people think you do this, do that, it's going to help. Like, stop.
Yeah.
Just be there for the person. It's simple. Listen to them, let them grieve, and just be there for them. It's such a simple concept. And that's all you needed.
Yeah.
And your family was able to, but you had your family to do that for you.
Yes.
And that's all you needed.
Yes.
Yeah. And obviously, you know, you were told by God that, hey, like in your time, that was good.
Be there.
Yeah.
And we, you know, Rick is the leader in our home after everybody went home. And after we had buried Mike, you know, he said, promise me that this isn't going to affect our relationship. And I promised him. Yeah. You know, so we went through, you know, all that too, you know, and losing our child. And, you know, marriages usually end after you bury a child, because
is that really? It's a statistic?
Very high, very high statistic.
Oh.
Over 50% of marriages end after they lose a child.
Do you think it's because people pull, you know, because oftentimes people focus just on the kids and their marriage separates, you know what I'm saying? Like they're not intentional towards each other throughout parenthood.
I think.
Does that make sense? But y'all had worked on y'all's relationship so much. Y'all had built such a strong bond that, like, no, that's what holds this all together. That's what created this. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I think that was your mindset. I think
that's what helped us get through it, that we had already resolved a lot of issues around that. And so we were very close. But also men grieve differently than women. Yeah. And so he's not even whatever. He's not crying. He's not talking about it. He's not, you know, whereas women, you know, we've lost a part of us and just nonstop crying and emotional, and, you know, and they're like, whoa, I've, you know, never seen that, you know, and so it's totally different. And when you understand there's a difference, you know, you learn how to mend or, you know, give part in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like show grace to one another. Yeah. Right. I mean,
because totally different grieving process.
Yeah. I mean, I watched a video recently about breakups. You know, men take things harder in their way because they prolong the process because they don't want to feel it, because we're men, right? We don't got to we don't got to cry and feel things. We just got to tough it out. And it actually prolongs things and causes, you know, further issues. But women tend to just get it all out right off the bat. Yeah. You know, I mean.
And he was carrying it for us all, you know, being the leader and being the man of the house. That, you know, and looking back, I probably should have been more aware, but I was just so stuck in where I was. Yeah. So his grieving process definitely took a lot longer to come through.
But it all worked out for the better. I mean, here y'all are, you know.
You know, you talk about the grieving process and why most marriages succumb to that. One of the reasons is that's a trauma that you feel so personally.
Oh, yeah.
And you go into yourself after you lose a child. You go deep into yourself and you start to experiencing that pain again. And because you experience that pain at such a level of hurt that it's hard to not let that emotion out with the people that you're with. So when you're struggling and you're in pain and you're suffering the loss of a loved one like this, it's easy to lash out to those that love you the most, which is the case in everything. I mean, no matter where we are in our lives, if you're married, anything that happens to you personally is going to happen to your spouse as well. You're going to feel that connection. You're going to feel that pain. And so because you're both feeling the pain from the same event, you hold on to that longer and then it lashes out. And so now you got this constant cycle of lashing out at one another because of your pain. And eventually it gets to the place where you just say, you know what? I've had enough.
Yeah.
I've lost my son. I've lost my child. I've lost whatever. And now we're fighting, and let's just do a start over. Let's just start our lives all over. And it's just so much easier to walk off into the sunset of a child loss by losing the marriage as well.
Yeah.
That's another thing. And I don't know that he's ever talked about this, but once we had gone through, losing Mike, and then he went into doing the union work, pornography came back up again. So knowing what I know now, especially during that time, it was easy for me to see this has nothing to do with me.
Oh, yeah.
And I was able, once I found it, I was like, okay.
It was a coping thing. Yeah.
I was able to show him, and I said, okay, I found this. What's going on?
Isn't it crazy too how thinking on the situation, how that came back at such a messed up time, really that's what arose out of from this situation, right? It's just crazy that of all things that came to be, and it's just weird. It shows you how dark that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a way of anesthetizing.
Yeah.
And thankfully, because we had been through everything that we'd been through, I was able to just say, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
What is it that you need? What's lacking? Let's talk.
Yeah.
And it was like, he was able to put it away.
But like you said, he was essentially the man of the house, though. He was the rock there for everybody. And I said this on the last podcast too, and it's crazy to think of it in a different light. And I don't know, just got my mind thinking. I said, talked about being the rock for those that you love as a man of the household, right? And I said, because I heard something long ago, and it's always stuck with me. It said, be the man that everybody comes to at your father's funeral. But I've never thought be the man that everybody comes to at your son's funeral, and I'm like, oof, that's just a whole nother level of, strength, you know what I'm saying? And that's, I don't know. It's just got me thinking, because I'm going to reflect on this too for a little bit. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, guys. That's powerful stuff. The church that he's at is the Experience Community, and she goes there every once in a while, and I'll tag along, She comes to my ritual stuff, and so as respect, I'll go support her, and but of course, there's so much more pressure for me. I'm like, babe, there's just so many more people. They're gonna sense me, they're gonna sniff me out. She's like, Joe, no one's gonna say anything. And I'm like, but I don't know. They're gonna sense my energy. He's not one of us. I got all in my head. And I told him, I was like, listen, I was sweating bullets, and this kid looked at me, and he did this, and my skin started burning, and he was like, no. But I was just joking about it. You gotta find the humor in it. But at the end of the day, I'm in a place of where I'm so firm in my convictions and who I am. I'm able to sit there and still retain value from what's being said.
And you can do that in anything.
In anything, right?
Yes.
Sure, maybe I don't agree with certain statements, right? But that's okay too. I'm not going to. I'm going to go there with a completely different point of view than probably anybody in there. And that's fine. But I'm just observing, and you know what? She's happy, and she, this fills her cup spiritually, and that's what matters, right? The same she does for me, and she joins in, and she's a part of things, and she knows all my brothers now, and she's built a relationship with everybody and their girls and stuff like that. So it's a cool thing. And that mutual, it's going to be a massive benefit for my daughter, because my daughter is not going to be raised in this is the way it is. This is how it's going to be. You treat these people this way because they're going to go to hell. She's going to grow up and be like, well, my parents are both exceptional, and they love each other so much, and they're going to see the example of what we have, but they also believe in different things, and she's going to understand it all. And then so she's not going to be basing her faith and her belief off of what someone tells her to do. Her heart's going to be what guides her there, and that's what I care about.
Right.
And that's how I want her heart to lead her in her life, And so I think my daughter, my wife and I have a opportunity, you know, and I think it's just such a cool dynamic, to be
It is
honest,
opportunity,
you know.
yes.
I think it's like, yes, this is like, my daughter's going to benefit so much. So anyways, that's cool. It's exciting how to think about it, but we'll get there. I'm embracing all the now stuff because she's just crazy little baby.
Enjoy every minute of it. It goes by fast.
But anyways, so let's get into this last segment. You know, we've covered a lot of ground today. Got a lot from you guys. I know before we cut off, I think you had something you were going to say. You took a breath, and I wish I
don't know. I didn't write it down, so
I know.
I've got to just feel it as it comes. So
yeah,
I'm sure.
Sorry about that, Rick.
It might come back.
I messed you up. I was trying to trying to have a good starting point, but then we start chatting about the weather and all kinds of stuff. So it'll come to us if it needs to. But you know, obviously we're talking, you know, the dominant thing is forgiveness and growth and just, you know, feeling all the life's traumas and moving forward and, you know, being able to bring this message and, you know, y'all's experiences to other people and impact their lives. So I guess that kind of leads me, you know, towards the end of at least the journey thus far, right? You know, you talked about your grieving process, you know, him being the man of the house and whatnot, and, you know, how y'all both handled that grief. I know right at the end of this last segment, we were talking about, you know, the porn came back, but I think you talked about maybe that had been eliminated. You confronted it. Like, how did that go? I don't know if you really stated that yet. I think you recognized that was a thing, and then you probably were like, no.
Well, just understanding, now that I understand porn, he was missing something emotionally, and he was trying to connect. And so you use that just like any other drug as that dopamine rush. And so my job as his helper is understanding what is that missing piece, what's going on emotionally, what's going on spiritually, what's going on in your life that this is starting to be a draw.
And you were grieving. You were in such a deep place of grief that you maybe were disconnected from, like, right? Emotionally, would you say, or were y'all connected pretty well?
I think that we were connected pretty well. It's just that, you know, again, because I was grieving, maybe he was fearful of exposing himself, you know, maybe because I was in a bad spot, you know, trying to protect me and dealing with whatever he was trying to deal with on his own.
So he wouldn't, of course, because you weren't trying to lay like your stuff on her too, you know, that because that could maybe spiral things out of control more or whatever the case, right? So, yeah, I mean, you know,
and I think that's
admirable.
Understand that issues like that just don't go away, but it's understanding, okay, there's a missing piece that's coming back up again.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know, there's a huge emotional and spiritual component to addiction. And when there are missing pieces, they're just trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, understanding, like my dad, I wish I, you know, again, could talk to him to find out, you know, what it was. You know, I think there was a lot of emotional and spiritual missing pieces in his life that drove him to the drinking. Yeah. You know, and so being a nurse and understanding more about addiction, I understood where he was coming from. It wasn't because he wanted to delve into that. There was a component in there that he was missing. And so I wanted to be a help to him and not be, you know, shame.
Yeah.
You know, oh, here we go again. No, that's not what it was about. You know, there was something that was going on that was triggering that. And so I wanted to find out what it was.
I think, you know, y'all being so spiritual, I think one thing I've noticed too for myself is the deeper the spiritual connection, no matter what you believe in, the less likely you are to dive into those habits or those issues, right? Because to me, it's like, well, that spiritual part of me provides me with so much purpose internally that, like, those other things aren't even a thought in my life, right? Falling into addictive traits because I serve something greater than myself in a way, right? And I think that's as things have moved forward in life, in society, I feel like the world is very spiritually disconnected.
Very.
And it gets crazier as a result of that. It gets more chaotic. There's less order. It's not as natural as things once were because we are devolved as a society, I guess I could say. So I think that's, one concept I preach all the time with the Relentless Pursuit. It's people are like, oh, it's a fitness thing. And I'm like, no, like it's a relentless pursuit first and foremost of your spiritual path, whatever that may be, but like relentlessly pursuing the best version of yourself there and then everything else, because I find that to be like the key that bleeds into every other aspect of your life. Right.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just felt like I needed to say that, but.
Well, and one of the other things about having relapses.
Yeah.
What that did with me was it allowed me to see that didn't have a hold on me anymore. It allowed me to see that I was, and I think is how I explained it to Kelly is there was a time when I would turn back to the pornography as a way of anesthetizing my guilt, my shame, the burden that I was holding. When I went back at it after Mike died and I started to have those thoughts again, it was like I went back, but the well was dry. It wasn't giving me what I once received.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started to look at it, I started to have a lot more empathy for the people that are in the industry.
Oh, yeah.
I started looking at it through a level of, man, this is where I was. I can only imagine where they are.
Yeah.
If they're the ones that are producing this content for people like me, how empty are they? How void are they? I wasn't getting the same validation, wasn't getting the same feelings that I had before.
Yeah.
And I started to look at it going, wow, Rick, look how much you've grown. This is where you were 10 years ago, and now here you are today, and now you look at it a totally different way. You're looking at it through a different lens now.
It's wild.
And I started to realize that I was healing. And so even though I may have gone back and looked, I was seeing it through the lens of a healing mindset as opposed to you wretched, worthless POS that you are. How are you turning back to this and doing it again?
Yeah.
That's not how it was this time.
Yeah.
It was totally different. And so I didn't want to burden her with where I was. I mean, I knew where my mind was heading. I knew what I was trying to accomplish, and I knew how it was affecting me. And it wasn't anywhere near what it did before. But at the same time, with her grief, I didn't want to throw a burden of, oh, and by the way, I happened to look at porn the other day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew that I was looking at it, and it was a totally different mind way of it was a mind shift for me.
Yeah.
When I looked at it through that lens the second time, it was almost like, can you see now how much you've grown? Rather than you are worthless for even attempting to look at it again.
Yeah, because even when I did ask him, he said, it was the strangest thing. He said, because even when I was looking at it, he was thinking, I'm not getting anything out of this.
Yeah.
And he said, my mindset is totally different.
It's huge.
Yeah. So I knew, okay, so even though you understand that, so what's going on in your life that
led to that?
Yeah. So, and then he was able to say, well, this is going on. And so he was able to tell me his stressors. And I was like, wow, and have empathy.
Yeah.
So I can understand the stress that was going on that led to that. And there was no fallout. There was no, bad mojo, nothing. It was like, okay, now we understand.
You're able to communicate it.
Yeah.
Right.
And move forward.
Such a massive
huge
thing. Being able to communicate
and not hold on. I mean,
Yeah.
look how easy it is. It would be very simple to just hold on to the past track record and go, yeah, but this, and this. And then You have the thought, that thought turns into an emotion, that emotion becomes a belief system based off of the experience you have from that emotion, and it just validates the way you think.
Yeah.
And so you can get stuck in remembering the past, and if you are focused on the past, you're going to create that in your future. So you're going to create the very thing that you focus on, because where you focus, energy goes. So if I put my attention on the past and all my indiscretions and the track record, that focus will cause me to expend energy into my future.
Yeah.
And causing that same paradigm to repeat itself.
Of course.
And that's the beauty about overcoming the addictive cycle, is when you can see where you're going and the trigger that sent you there, you can start to do and reprogram it, reprocess that thing and say, okay, well, what's going on? Yeah. And start to deal with the real issues at hand.
Yeah. And being and given the growth y'all had too, being able to communicate, and you probably didn't get like angry and lose it like in the past, right? Yeah. And that forced you to be like, oh man, I handled this much better than I did before,
And that's a success. So instead of people looking at the wins, they get so focused in on the event that you quote unquote tripped up on or stumbled, and they focus on that, and you forget about all the wins.
Yeah.
And so how easy is life when you go through it looking at all the failures rather than all the victories?
Yeah.
So if you're going to look at all your failures, it's only fair to look at all your victories too.
Yep.
And if you can at least equally evaluate them together, you don't lose so much hope when you stumble.
Yeah.
Or when your mind goes into different places, because now you know that there's an end game, and the end game is all about becoming better every single day.
Yep.
It's all about overcoming the past.
And I think, looking at those, something I like to focus on too is like looking at kind of changing the definition of failure in your own way. Like not even looking at anything that you may have looked at as failure, but tests or lessons, right? Because I think there's only one failure, and that is quitting.
That's exactly right.
Like my belief system is like that is the only way to fail, is to quit.
That's exactly right.
As long as you're moving forward, you're going to have some hiccups, but those are all, just a parts of the path that you can learn from and you can grow from. And if you're doing those two things, then you're not failing, even though it may feel like a slump at the time, you can gain something from that. And so that's a win in itself. Right. I think so. Just being able to analyze it in a different way and just not quitting.
The only way to fail is when you quit, but you quit because you feel as though there's a judgment over you that is so powerful.
Yeah.
And when you look at God through the lens of this judging being that is, wants what's best for you, but he's also sitting there with a switch in his hand ready to smack you back into subjection when you quote unquote fail.
Yeah.
That's not a relationship.
No.
I mean, as a father, would you ever do that to your children?
No.
I mean, but there are fathers that do that.
Yeah.
As a father, would you ever condemn your daughter to an eternal damnation for not following your instruction perfectly?
Not at all.
No. What you do is you got to have room for growth. And in growth, that means failure becomes feedback. It's not failure, it's information to help you better yourself in the future. So you get this feedback. And where the grace comes in, it gives you the grace to fail.
Yeah.
So that you can get that feedback.
Exactly.
If you don't have the grace to fail to get the feedback, then what you're setting yourself up is perfection. And perfection is the laziest way you could possibly go through life, because you can never be perfect.
Yeah.
You can never be perfect. So measure all the successes in the process.
That's perfect.
And you will start to see the benefit and the growth. And when you start to see the benefit and the growth, you're not so focused on the past and the failure.
Yeah.
So then the cycle doesn't have to be a negative loop cycle. You can go into the positive loop cycle. And therein lies the difference between faith, a life of faith and a life of fear. Faith will give you anticipation. It will give you excitement. It will give you the motivation to want to keep going and want to keep growing. Whereas fear sets you up for anxiety.
Yeah.
It sets you up for doubt. And when the mind starts focusing on the doubt and the anxiety of life, that's when everything starts to stress out in your life.
Yeah.
And it starts to take a hold on you. And the addictive nature is, okay, how can I anesthetize this pain?
Yeah.
And then boom,
yeah,
you're back into it.
Yep.
So it's a beautiful thing when you can go through the process and look at the successes along the way and start to see how much greater they're becoming in your life instead of focusing on all your failure.
Without a doubt. Beautifully said. I love that. And, you know, I do want to tack on what you said about, you know, the expectation of, you know, doing just as someone says, right? Like following that to a T and like, you know, feeling that shame or whatever you, like you said with like God, as a father, would I do that? One, I don't expect my daughter to follow everything I say perfectly. Like I'd be a hypocrite. I did not do the same with my parents with everything they told me to do. I don't think anybody does what they're told to do. You know, your children or the ones that follow you are going to replicate your actions, not your words. You know what I'm saying? So that goes to say too, like lead by example. And if you're constantly like hitting them with a switch, you know, every time they mess up, well, that's only going to deter them from becoming who they're supposed to be. And two, you know, that's only a temporary fix, but eventually they're going to stray away from that. So leading by that example,
right.
You know what I'm saying.
Exactly.
But, no, I like how you put that with as far as the failures and victories go. And, you know, I think you guys are just like such a great example of, I don't know, so many things. Like I've already said it, like the forgiveness, you know, just growth, you know, using the things you've been through to have power on others and impact others. I think y'all just, and it's crazy because I'm like, y'all are just getting started. Y'all got a lot of, there's so much impact I can see y'all make. You know what I'm saying? Like it's crazy to me. And I think it's really cool, the amount of value and the lessons that y'all can provide for others. I mean, y'all should be proud of that. So
I appreciate that. And I think we enjoy helping people see that because, you know, life is so tough. Life is tough. I mean, even if you don't go through addiction or lose a child or, you know, have a catastrophic injury, it's tough.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like if a lot of us would communicate, you know, what your hurts are and be honest, you know, and be willing to accept the help, I think it would change a lot of things in the world.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely.
And, you know, even through everything that we've gone through, you know, it was an amazing feeling to learn grace. It was amazing feeling to learn unconditional love.
Yeah.
Because that's a process also.
Yeah.
And it's also an amazing feeling when you receive that.
Yeah.
You know, because I also got grace and unconditional love from Rick.
Yeah.
You know, so it works both ways.
I love it.
And
Heck yeah.
we, you know.
Absolutely.
So I do want to ask you, like, given everything that's led up to today, where are you at? Just like with everything, you know, when you reflect on the journey so far.
It's interesting because I'm content with life.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember the scripture growing up, you know, in all things, you know, you be content. And I could never understand that. Yeah. Like, I was never content. Never. And after going through everything that we've been through, I am content.
Yeah.
And it's a good place to be.
You found gratitude in a lot of things. Yeah. I think finding true gratitude, I think for me has granted that contentment. You know,
and that doesn't mean everything's perfect.
No,
it doesn't mean I don't have a bad day. It doesn't mean I'm content. You know, I'm living life and I understand, you know, the ebb and flow. I know someday I won't be here and I look forward to that day.
Yeah. I
look forward to it.
Heck yeah.
You know, so it's not a scary thing to die and leave this earth.
Yeah.
And I think everything that has happened in our life has taught me that.
Yeah. I love it. Hey, that's a beautiful place to be. And I'm happy for you. I'm glad for that. What about you, Rick? You know, I didn't ask you that last time.
Contentment is definitely there, but I just went through a 30-day gratitude check for myself.
I saw that.
And when you go and you just start really thinking about what you truly have gratitude for, when you do it for 30 days and you try to find 5 things every day, you get to a place where you've got to go so deep into finding your gratitude that you end up finding gratitude in the darkest places. And I have found gratitude in sexual addiction. I have found the gratitude in our marriage struggles. I found gratitude in the loss of our son. I found gratitude in breaking my neck and being paralyzed. And for me, just the fact that I can be thankful and have gratitude for life,
it's powerful itself.
It's hard to put it into words what kind of power that really does bring you. Because now what it says is that nothing can happen to me.
Yeah.
Nothing can happen to me where I can't find a gift.
Yeah.
There's a gift in everything. Even in your darkest days, there's a gift because it's preparing you for something in the future.
No doubt.
So rather than look at life through the lens of poor me and life's not fair, why is this happening to me? I get to look at life now through thank you, God. You've given me a beautiful life.
I love it.
You've given me a beautiful opportunity to show value to others in life. And most importantly, you've given me the greatest partner to experience it with in Kelly.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, the best place that I find myself now is I'm just in a constant state of thankfulness.
Love that.
I'm just thankful to be alive and thankful to be at a place where I can start to give back that gift to the lives of other people so I can help collapse time for them.
Oh, yeah, right.
You don't have to go through 10 years of destroying your marriage with an addiction to fix it.
Right.
You certainly don't have to go through another 10 years of just earning the right to be heard and to be trusted again.
Yeah.
So you don't have to waste 20 years of your life. You could literally walk through it with somebody who's already gone through and charted the course. You could collapse time and money by just following through with somebody who's already gone on the journey with you.
Yeah.
And if we can be of that kind of service to other people, then everything we've gone through has been worth it.
That's the point I've been trying to make to people to get your story out there. Like, hey, y'all can gain so much value from this now in your lives, you know, and that's the point. Yeah. So you don't have to face these things, you know, or like you said, go that a lot, 10 years, 20 years of marriage working on this and that and spending money when you can, like, you know, confront it and learn from somebody that's already done it for you.
Yeah.
So,
and well, we do that with businesses. I mean, people mentor up with successful business entrepreneurs all the time, and they give them their track record. They give them their formula for how they became successful, right?
Yeah.
And they collapse time and money for people who are struggling or learning how to become an entrepreneur in their business field. Well, we do the same thing with life. The difference is that in life, we sometimes want to make that more personal.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want you in my space. I don't want you to really know who I am. And then therein lies the addictive cycle. Because if you knew who I really was, you probably wouldn't like me or accept me. So therefore, I'm not going to be that open with you as to show you how authentically human and unworthy I can be at times.
Isn't that crazy? But like the freedom you can have if you actually do, just like, you know, my brother-in-law gave me a good compliment yesterday, and I had this like metal shirt on. He's like, Joe, he didn't say like, he said, in a way I envy just like how you just are just so uniquely you. He's like, I'm happy. I love my sports. I love the things I do, all this. But he said, you're just like, there's no boundaries. And I was like, man, at the end of the day, I could care less what people think about my beliefs or my experiences or what I've been through or whatever the case is, because I know at the end of the day, they can't knock my character. And that's the only thing I care about, what people think. But everything else is part of who I am. Take it or leave it. And I said, and it's freeing, and I said, that's just the only way to live. It's the only way to live life, man, because if I'm worried about people's judgment of this and that, like, I'm only going to ever be held back. And I'm here for the experience of life, and I want to live that to the best I can. And so I'm just going to put it all out there and just be me and do my thing. And hey, take it or leave it. But like, you can't knock my character. That's what I hold on to. I thought it was a really cool thing for him to say, but I appreciate that. And
speaking of character, there's 3 elements of our relationships. I mean, the first level of a relationship is a very self-centered relationship. It's all about me.
Yeah.
Second level of a relationship, it's more of a win-win type scenario, and you see that a lot in marriages and business partners and things like that. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. It's a very transactional relationship. Yeah. And even that has the tendency to fail more often than not, because the minute someone feels like, well, you're not pulling your end of the bargain and you're not pulling your 50%, conflict sets in. But there's a third element to relationships that is about your needs are now my needs.
Yep.
So it's the essence of what God is your need is my need. So, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, is an essence of God coming down and meeting our need. Our need was, as humans, we have a propensity to make a lot of stupid mistakes.
Yeah.
And in those mistakes, we create a hell on earth because of it. So forgive them for as they try to develop this hell on earth, because they don't even know what they're doing. So the essence of God is that third key element to a relationship, where you become as God. You become like God for the lives of other people. So their needs become your needs. And therein lies what unconditional love is all about, and what the whole story behind God is. He's come to show us that we are unconditionally loved, right where we are. And if we can turn around and do that with our fellow man, can you imagine the lifestyle of, just imagine your relationship with just your wife alone, or just your family, if you approached it from the standpoint of, your need is my need.
Yeah.
I want to be the grace giver in your life.
Be a light in the darkness.
You become light. And when you become light, darkness dissipates. We have darkness today because all the light has gone, and they pushed it underneath the bushel. They pushed it underneath the bed. They tried to hide the light instead of let the light just shine. Just let your light shine. And the way your light shines is it has to shine through all of your darkness too.
Yep.
You have to expose your darkness. Otherwise, you have no light.
That's a fact. That's 100%. And that's the inspiration behind the shirt. It says Lux in Tenebris on the back, which is Latin for light and darkness.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. And that was the idea of like why I made this shirt, because it's like,
perfect.
Yeah, it's powerful.
That is very powerful.
But that being said, I would record with y'all for hours and hours. I'd have to get some more SD cards and probably some more batteries. So we'll just have to circle back around one of these days. But I love that I've been able to build not only a relationship with you, you're a friendship, and you're my client now, and you've been on this podcast 3 times now, but it's been a blessing getting to know you, Kelly, and I look forward to getting to know you more.
I look forward to it.
You guys are amazing, and I'm very inspired by y'all, and I am so grateful to have y'all in my life. And I'm sure so many people are grateful to hear y'all's story, and I hope it gets out there to as much as possible. So,
right.
Thank you.
But that being said, I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Because I asked Rick last time, what is your relentless pursuit?
Peace.
Simple. It's the simplest answer I've gotten. Peace. You just want peace.
Just want peace.
I love that. Enough said.
That's it.
Hey, thank you for that. I'm going to reflect on that, actually. Peace. Huh. That's like, everybody always gives great answers, but that's the simplest one I've gotten.
A lot
and
of turmoil.
Yeah. Peace is perfect.
And
I love it.
Can you imagine going through life peaceful?
Yeah, I can kind of imagine. It'd be nice. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Hell yeah. No, I appreciate that answer for sure. But I appreciate you guys. Y'all got anything else to say? Y'all got anything else to leave me with?
No, this
Just
was
keep doing
awesome.
what you're doing, Joe.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
You're a light in darkness.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And don't let anybody ever steer you away from that.
Yes, sir.
Because that's who you are.
I promise.
Continue to be a beacon of light.
Thanks, Rick.
This place needs it.
Yeah.
Well, that means a lot. Thank you so much. I'll do so. I promise you that. Yeah, that's the goal. Hell yeah, guys. Well, I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Looking forward to next time.
All right.
Take care, guys.
Peace.
What y'all think?
Nice.
Love it.